You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast. I'm your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you incredibly well, all things considered. I also want to thank you for your ongoing support, just being here, listening to the podcast, sending emails, saying what you like about the podcast, what you're listening to, what you like about what you're listening to. It's all incredibly important to us here at Clarkesworld. It lets us know that what we are doing actually matters. So thank you so much for all of your input. Thank you to our subscribers, our patrons over at patreon.com/Clarkesworld, and those of you who have chucked a few bucks our way via donation. There are myriad ways that you can support this magazine each and every month. And the simple fact of the matter is we cannot do this without you. Each and everything that you guys do helps us each and every month. So thank you. As always, you can reach me by Kate at clarksworldmagazine.com. And that is Clark with an E. Our third story for the month of October 2025, issue 229, is titled Crabs Don't Scream and is by H.H. Pak. H.H. Pak is a Los Angeles-born child of Korean immigrants and a strong believer in the power of sacrificial love. When they are not working towards their aspirations in the medical field or co-editing for Wormhole magazine, they dream about space operas, make cringe art, and bother their dog too much. Now, if you want to go back and listen to a couple other stories, Pak's work is available in Clarkesworld, and you can go listen to Never Eaten Vegetables, 24 Hours, and Scalp. So, my dear listener, I hope that you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. You fall in love at a train station 15 seconds before the end of the world. Flustered, you slip back 200 years and fall against a cafe table, spilling cream and coffee all over a businessman. Sorry, you say, then don't know what to say next, so you slip back another 60 years to when the cafe was an abandoned theater warehouse. You skid across the half-rotted floorboards and fall frontward into the flaking wigs and costumes spilling wrinkled from their boxes. After tossing off a rubber donkey mask, you sit in the damp and throw your briefcase across your face. Shit. It isn't really your face. It's borrowed, in a sense. Your body is modeled from a data set of trillions, each limb and follicle designed for complete ambiguity, a median amalgamation of human likeness, except for your face, which you had copied from a Joseon bronze apprentice named Mahon Soo. This is against repository rules. Clerks are never supposed to look like distinct humans in case you are recognized across the slipstreams. But Mahon Soo had died young while crossing a swollen river, and admin enforces strict policies about recording the details of circumstantial accidents. The weight of his cart, the age of his oxen, and the speed of the current when it had dragged him, numb under the cold, and dashed his head against the river stones. You'd thought it was a sorry waste, such a nice face broken to pieces, known only by a small mountain village in a time before cameras or live streams or Vogue. So you took it for yourself, despite the rules. In any case, you haven't been docked for it yet. Mahon Soo's face burns in your hands. You stand. You wring your fingers, play with your joints. You've always enjoyed the pliability of human fingers, perfect for fidgeting with. You pop out your phalanges, one by one, and snap them back into place for the satisfaction. You do not need oxygen, but you siphon breaths through the ornamental sacs you call lungs as you pace across the warehouse floor. You decide to do what you do best. Observe. You leave your meat behind and slip forward to the train station. Perched invisible, you watch the watery after-image of yourself fading from the continuity. It heals itself over as it always does, fills the gap you made in the crowd like a handprint in foam. You take in the ridiculous contortions of your face. When you spotted the human, you watch yourself stumble and slip to the cafe. You evaluate the human. They step off the train, a haggard commuter in a uniform, backlit by yellow light. They're nothing special, you conclude. Then you convulse and snap past the surface tension of 260 years so quickly that you spark like a neutron star. Raw, with friction burns, you catapult into the warehouse, back into your meat, and roly-poly across the floorboards. You lie face down in a puddle of fluids escaping from every pore, suffused in a halo of steaming heat. Your appendix ruptures. Love. Yes. Well, perhaps. Love at first sight is the assumption that comes to mind, but there could be many other reasons for this crumpling, this flushing, these liquids, this irritating tide of hormones and gases and thermodynamics. After all, you had done a pretty shoddy job with your marrow and meat. Your hemoglobin isn't even the right shade. Too pink. You also hadn't bothered with the proper folding between your gray and white matter and have to admit that it's mostly wet mush. Except for your amygdala. You make excellent amygdalas. You must have forgotten to include the receptors for essential hormones or added hormones humans aren't supposed to have. Maybe you triggered some spontaneous misfire, stimulants running haywire through this half-baked labyrinth you wear. That must be why you're nauseous, trembling. So are the molecules in the air. Why are they trembling too? You realize you're screaming. You must have been screaming the entire time you fell. When you prop up your temporal gyrus, you have a habit of blocking out frequencies along the human-made range. The noise you're making is an unpleasant shrillness. Your vocal cords aren't any better made than the rest of you. You snip them and cough until they come fluttering out of your nostrils. They regrow within you like webs. You step backward out of the warehouse and take a seat on a polar ice cap. Dry Antarctic winds wick away your soggy heat and you grow calm. It's easier to think under the midnight sun, just you, some distant penguins, and a glistening belt of ocean separating shore from sky. Had there been anything anomalous at that train station? You recall the uncomfortable humidity, but it's always humid in human crowds, all the damp skin and orifices. The train had been late, but then again, train lateness is only natural. You remember spending a boring afternoon watching the first coal-todding locomotive stall up a hill, shaking rickety in its wooden skeleton. And the hyperstellar railways of Capsula 9 miscalculate their gravitational dilation all the time, sometimes by decades. Was it the smell then? You were sensitive to smells, but no. The air had smelled like mosquito wings and the soda lime glass of a million computer screens. As many cities do. You think back to propping your mass between a ticket machine and the station wall, an exhausted commuter by all appearances. You had made a show of sifting through your briefcase on your knee. In reality, you had reached into a pocket dimension where you'd stored the human's biographical data recorded by your fellow clerks. And what a mess. Cuneiform stone tablets, subliminal messaging hidden in free-floating radio waves, copper engravings, floppy disks, hard drives, SD cards, the unraveled DNA of a Cuban sandwich, as well as stacks of loose, college-ruled A4 letter-legal tabloid cardstock, cotton, linen, birch bark, and pressed parchment papers in countless handwritings. You're only thankful the repository refuses standardization to preserve skew allotted by clerk idiosyncrasies. Whatever that means. You had grasped a comprehensive yet lackluster record of a life, 31, unpartnered, someone who had grown and worked in the same city from birth to present. A statistic. A human like any other human you had ever recorded. You thought such mundanity ironic in light of the fact that their commute is the last moment to record in the entirety of earthly existence the final paragraph across the span of planetary history before the end of the world. In hindsight, perhaps a moment deserving gravitas if you cared about that kind of thing anymore. You were supposed to describe their final moments, whether they scratched their nose or burped or checked their watch, their heart rate, their enzyme count, their last words. You'd done it countless times before. Then the Earth was supposed to turn to dust, taking them with it, and you were supposed to submit your final report before making an obligatory appearance at a work party on an asteroid greenhouse deep in the Andromeda galaxy. But then Oh, you saw the human, and something overwhelming had happened inside you. Your guts writhing like monstrous worms, and you've gotten all weird and flung yourself through space-time to get away from that feeling twice. And now here you are, watching a distant colony of penguins squawk at their young. You grab your briefcase, then step forward to the cafe. For good measure, you twitch the continuity threads, so you have been at the window seat for the past half hour, a cronut in one hand and a magazine in the other. You order a shot of espresso, technically your first, continually your third, as you contemplate the possibility that maybe you are just tired. You have been tired for a very long time. This reminder of your exhaustion sinks heavy in your chest. One of your porcelain ribs cracks. You need a vacation so badly that the very thought of it fills your mouth with water. After the end of the world, you fully intend on detaching from the repository's ever-demanding attention and sinking into the folds of the universe's expansion, burrowing into a place where nobody can bother you for a good long while. Whenever your fellow clerks ask how you're going to spend your time off, you lie. You say you're going to dally on post-colonized Mars, a time of lawless risks under dusky orange skies, heated moments of passion in the sticky warmth of storm shelters, young bodies seeking meaning in the unknown, all the racketed substances a civilization could taste, and none of the bureaucracy. Every assignment you've spent there has been a perfectly customized torture, not that you'd ever admit it. Most of your coworkers adore the human race and all its pleasures. They spend their free time and much of their working time, with displeasure, ingratiating themselves to every sensational whim, tactical ardor, abuse of their synapses, succulent sensory delights, humanity's cravings in a range of flavors you've never had a taste for. You have to admit you're a bit odd, even by clerk standards, but you also know fully well that there's a line between eccentric odd and doesn't get invited to work parties odd that you haven't crossed yet and aren't keen to. Besides, it's not like you hate humans. Far from it. For all your complaining, you admit you even like the Earth reasonably, although it's undeniably overhyped for being the one that started it all. In your regard, others too often forget that it is the only macro ecosystem to independently manifest such unpleasant things as hurricanes and mosquitoes and plague. Especially when you need to occupy a human body, you much prefer the sanitized biomes of the thousands of civilizations that will rise and fall after the end of the world. No, it's not the Earth, and it's not the humans personally. But humans are sentient creatures, and you've had more than your fill of sentient company. Your coveted plan is to spend the next few centuries buried as a crab on a Teegardian beach. You've even gone so far as to sculpt the mottled gray shell sitting in your pocket, ready for donning the moment you clock out. Your fingertips trace the carapace. You close your eyes. You take a final bite of your cronut and lean forward back onto the train station. You sit on a bench a full minute before the end of the world. What is falling in love, anyway? You hardly know. You are only capable of making assumptions from secondhand observations. Your previous assignment had been a prostitute in Damascus in AD 45. The one before that, a tech juggernaut monopolizing a nexus station between star systems. Both had many lovers, in the carnal sense, even in the open emotional sense. And all of it had been a kind of love in a way. Maybe not always a love for their partners, but a love for company at its simplest, and a love for power at its most fundamental. You remember a lot of it involving hunger, manipulation, and secrets. You particularly remember the secrets. You wondered what pulled you to that moldy warehouse. Is it an instinct etched in your artificial DNA? Your shoddy slapped genes urging you to procreation and the promised immortality of a new generation? Or is it loneliness? A yawning commuter joins you on your bench. They pull a device out of their pocket and swipe through Media Blessed at full volume. You rupture both ear canals on instinct, then reluctantly rebuild them. No, you aren't lonely. Far from it. Teagarden is a planet without sentient life. It's precarious, untouched by the roiling chaos cocktail of evolutionary progression. You long for the solitude to the point of pain. Another rib snaps. You would do anything to be there now, hidden in your granular cloister, clawed, stiff, twitching, the only complex organism across several thousand parsecs. This weakness, this hesitance, is an error, you conclude, a symptom of anticipation. Not love, then, just the thing that you thought human love was supposed to feel like. You make a note to be more careful with your marrow and meat next time. A vibration from the speakers heralds the train's arrival. You move to the edge of the station platform, fiddling with your briefcase, counting the nanoseconds, waiting for the human to hurry up and get off so the world can end. And you can finally slip off your itchy flesh cage. The train arrives and the human steps onto the platform. You ready your ballpoint pen and your yellow notepad. The human has blue hair, a popular trend for their era, and not all that uncommon. They hustle off the train, head bent, brow furrowed, thrown by the tide of disembarkers. They have dark eyes, a warm complexion corrugated with acne, and wear silver hublink piercings, marking them for a career in any one of the towering clusters of lights that make up the city. They clutch an umbrella, although it hasn't rained that day. This is as far as you can observe before you are in a Babylonian tomb. This time, having thrown yourself so violently that you smash a line of ceramic urns and shatter your collarbone, you wheeze, your alveoli erupt in popcorn bursts. The umbrella. It has to be the umbrella. You lie, feverish mind churning. You are reacting to the strangeness of the umbrella. But no, not that strange, really. The sky had been gray that morning. What is it, then? What is this? You put a shaking hand to your chest, then remember that you had forgotten to grow a heart. You make one now, shoving aside your shrunken spinal column. It takes less than a second to grow. It is a small misshapen pouch of toughened muscle with too many valves and an upside-down aorta. That is functional. You search for your pulse as you concentrate on your prospective vacation. You think of the vibrations of a tide over your shell, a sepulcher incubating you in a salty mire. Your giddy heart thumps faster. Then, you think about the crown of a head shining cobalt in the harsh station lights, a widow's peak framed by flyaway strands, a hand clutched around an umbrella, a shadowed face lowered to the ground. Your rate goes tachycardic. You choke, and your heart palpitates itself into a dead lump. You hunch over and convulse from your chest until you regurgitate the organ into your palm in a splatter of rosy fluid. You crush it into a carbon atom, wipe your mouth, then lower yourself into the dust to grow a new one. You bend over the railing of an enclosure alight with the shifting hues of zooluminescent tardigrades. You sink into a velvet seat overlooking Act 2 of La Traviata. You squat in a children's sandpit under a maple tree. Then you seat yourself on the edge of the International Space Station, purveying the remains of the dead planet Earth below. You decide that you are confused, but you don't like that, so you decide that you are angry. It doesn't feel fair to be angry with a human, especially a human at the end of the world. You want to be angry with yourself, but crabs can't be angry. Crabs can't be bothered with anything, especially not crabs balanced on the cusp of a cool tide and the warmth of 3 suns. No, you need to practice a crab state of being. Non-feeling. Complete objectivity. Fuck admin. It's their damn fault. You leap at this revelation and land on a rice paddy, letting the cool mud soak into your shoes, your socks, and your 13 toes. Yes, everything went wrong the moment they disrupted the neat linear records you and the other clerks had maintained since the beginning. Admin had abruptly decided to redo it all from scratch, demanding a new series of chronicles separated by major historical turning points. Such a decision constituted a furious departmental discussion. After all, what the fuck is a major historical turning point? You believed it asinine from the start. Admin did not invite you to their conversations. They never do. As they say, clerks are record keepers, not decision makers. But you still argued any opportunity you had that history is not a conveniently mapped roadway, but an unpredictable wilderness of amalgamated microdecisions, some quite insignificant in scope, but no less important to the delicate ecosystem that defines the present. Many of your fellow clerks protested as well. Not so much for the sanctity of the work, but in indignation at the extra labor thrust upon you all. But admin mentioned something about the preservation of the records and necessary security measures and taking extra precautions against the army of monstrous worms who despise the repository and would stop at nothing to invade and swallow it whole, thereby sweeping the very memory of humankind into eternal non-existence, etc., etc. Then they said they were going to assign extra overtime to those who wouldn't stop complaining, which more or less got everyone in line. You rolled your eyes, whenever you had any, watching admin hold a millennium's worth of debates before they finally agreed on 3 major turning points. 1. The creation of the universe. Invalid, you cried, as it was not a turning point at all, just the beginning of the point. There was nothing interesting to record in that relentless darkness before time began, except the cosmic battles against the monstrous worms, but who cares about those anymore? 2. The first sentient creature. Sure, you were there for that, but you did not believe it to be very special. The creature had mostly used that sentience to make bad art and get better at killing things. And of course, number 3. The end of the planet Earth. When an undiscovered classification of Higgs boson comes into existence in a faulty particle accelerator, eliciting a eureka from a collection of politicians, generals, and PhDs, before subsequently decaying every molecule on the planet Earth into oblivion. This, you admit, is a dramatic event, but not one constituting a turning point. Turning implies change, a pivot. You tried demonstrating this several times to admin in a variety of forms, but admin has not taken physical form since the dawn of the cosmos. They had long forgotten everything about the function of Euclidean space, including knowledge of pivoting. They do not remember that change implies a passing from one state to another, to difference, to entropy. When they dismissed you, you screamed long and hard into a black hole. You scream now, stamping into the shallow water and flecking yourself with chaff. A family of water buffalo turns their heads to you. Of course, this was all back when you still cared enough to argue that the end of the planet Earth was neither the end of the universe nor the end of humankind. Sure, the Earth crumbled into a dead gray thing, but the off-world humans made efficient work of containing the decay before it spread further. And that just catalyzed the whole lot to expand farther into the galaxy, upon which the species did rather well for themselves in the long run. You gave it a lot of thought in those early days. You even wrote a proposal suggesting that the turning points be divided as such. Number 1, the first egg birth, catalyzing the gene-protecting maternal instinct that laid the primal bedrock of existence, seemed, in your regard, much more important than a smooth-brained air breather having a thought. 2, the first seasoned dish. It had been a pounded animal thrown over embers topped with mustard stems, contributed by a prehuman with a sensitive nose and an anomalous neural pathway that would later evolve into a creative instinct. You had snatched some from the coals, then spit it out because it was too gamey. But it wasn't about the taste. It was about the smiling and the way they crouched closer to the fire to stick greasy handfuls in each other's faces and laugh over the bitterness of the char, the spicy note in each dripping mouthful. It was the way the little siblings danced out again in the muggy spring to gather more stems. And 3, the first war. It had been a small one, centuries before the first human city laid its foundation. You do not remember much about how it started, but you never forgot their faces. The way the humans had looked at each other when dust settled over the gore, oxidizing in pits of mud. Those expressions were not the last of their kind by a long shot, but they were the first. Those rigid faces, the smell penetrating the stillness, and the way they dragged their Dead friends into the night sticks in your mind as mattering much, 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 much more than the end of the planet Earth. Earth. Earth, the overrated Earth. You can no longer bother yourself with an abstract council who impart their authority by function of boiling longer in the primordial soup, who haven't talked to a single human in eons, who don't even remember what a pivot is, going about it all wrong. You learned that your job is to record and observe and stay silent. All that matters is that stupid new transition system requires centuries of overtime from each stupid clerk in the repository to record 10 billion stupid last days before the Earth dies. But back to love. First love on a train station. 15 seconds before the irrevocable mass decay of the planet. Oh, you lean back into a producer's chair. You watch young actors in period garb swoon in front of a green screen. You drink a kale smoothie. Clearly, something is compromising your ability to perform your job. You consider trading your assignment. But even unofficial trades need a good reason behind them, and this isn't a good reason at all. Your peers wouldn't understand your distress. Your peers love love and all its rituals. In fact, if there were real career consequences for every salacious controversy of a clerk getting too involved with a human, there wouldn't be enough clerks to do shit. You know it never matters. Your kind cannot indent the fabric of the continuity in any significant way, nor can you leave any mark on human memory. You are forgotten in a head turn, a distraction, a blink. Even now, as you wander onto the stage set, criticizing the inaccuracy of the costumes, rearranging the props, flinging smoothie everywhere, you know that they will not remember you in the next second, that these perplexed humans will go back to their scene and forget you as a hot stone forgets a wet handprint, as wet sand forgets a hot handprint, as the expensive lens will forget your fingerprint, drawing an oily, smiling face on a camera that cannot see or retain you. Appeal never made sense. Why chase these fleeting moments of intimacy when they vanish quicker than fog in sunshine? It seems debasing, more so than remaining faithful to your place in the peripheries. These are the odd opinions you do not voice. So a trade won't make sense to any of the others, and honestly doesn't make much sense to you either. You slide back to the cafe, resolving that you want to do this. You want to get off this planet and be done with the pointless assignment so you can be a crab and not be bothered with hearts or lungs or Mahansu's slight overbite or the sticky damp or watching your fellow clerks dance into endless forgotten nights. You try again. A shot of espresso for luck, then back to the train station. 15 seconds. The end of the world approaches, so does the human. Silver piercings, chapped lips, uneven bangs in those endless dark eyes. This time they almost meet your gaze, and when you slip backward, you fall into a badger hole. You fracture your ankle. You stand in a sorghum field in a place that will someday be a town, that will someday be a city. You groan and pinch yourself, then forget you didn't give yourself nerve endings. So you grow nociceptors under your cheeks and slap yourself until you feel calmer. Maybe it's Mahansu, you think. Maybe you copied more than just his nice, symmetrical face. Maybe Mahansu, the drowned Josen bronze apprentice, would have had a thing for blue hair if he had lived in a different time, a different place. You don't want to take chances, so you use the reflective surface of a duck pond to adjust yourself. You prod your brow, widen your cheekbones, indent your chin, scour your scalp, and take a foot off your spine for good measure. When you step back onto the station, you are a strange little thing. Too little. The crowd jostles you forward, you lose your footing, and a child collides with you as she dashes out of her mother's grasp. You flatten instantly, toppling into someone else. The mother rushes out, apologies dribbling down her chin. You read her micro-expressions, embarrassment followed by the masked curiosity humans put on when confronting unattractive members of their species, followed by a more profound embarrassment. You regret the duck pond. The child asks something honest. Why are his lips so lumpy, Mommy? And then they're whisked away, and you are still on the ground, and there is something warm moving underneath you. You shift aside and catch a glimpse of blue hair, an umbrella cast askew, your chest on their shoulder, their knee prodding into your stomach. You on top, them below, that human, your human, you two tangled on the ground, touching. When you get to your feet, you have one foot in a diplodocus nest. You strain your lower back, trying to keep your balance, so you do not flail into the eggs. The herd bleats in reptilian fury as they stampede from the marsh. You jump onto a sill 800 meters up the Burj Khalifa, swipe a fern off your shoe, then adjust yourself in the polished window. You add the foot back into your spine. You melt your face into a puddle that pools gooey pink into your hands, then pinch it back together with your fingers sculpting by instinct. Wind whistling in your ears. You stare at your reflection. And Mahan Su's damned face stares back. You give up and freefall. You do not return to the train station, but to a greenhouse 1,000 years into the future and 10,000 light years away. You walk with purpose down ivy-strewn pathways, soaked in the radiation of 6 moons. Coppery light bathes trees and shrubs, the last of their kind, all obscured in a pastel explosion of crepe paper party streamers. Hey, the clerks call. They're all human, you note with a twinge of disappointment. No chlorophyll or tentacles or fur or wings or carapaces. No third eyes or 6 fingers or so much as an unattractive face. Where's the fun in it all, you think glumly. Then again, here you are looking at Mahan Su. Nearly done? One approaches you. You do not recognize the body, but you recognize the way they wear it. I like the new look, you comment. Small talk. Thanks. Hey, your report's not in yet. We've got a fun kickoff for when you ship it to the repository. They jerk their thumb at the Goliath disco ball strung over the walkway. It's filled with glitter and plasma. The fractals shatter into a mirror tile dance floor when it falls. Pretty snazzy. You drop it when you're done. They purse their lips. So why are you here if you're not done? I've got a situation, you say, and you contort Mahan Su's face into an expression of blithe vulnerability. Can you keep a secret? Oh, of course, they say gutturally, because all clerks love secrets. I think I may have fallen in love with human, you whisper. You hesitate, then clarify. The one I'm supposed to record? They get so excited that they decompose in front of you. Makeup and epidermis and oily adipose sloughing. Then they bring themselves back together with a clap of 2 perfectly manicured hands. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, they explain. We almost lost hope in you. Finally fell off your high cow, didn't you? Horse, you correct, because odd eccentricities are also notorious know-it-alls. I need some advice if I'm going to get my report in. My physical reaction is so strong, I can't get the last 15 seconds. Can't omit that, they say seriously. Almost got booked with double overtime when I submitted a report with 6 seconds missing. Accidentally missed one of 5,058 snores on a summer night. They're taking this new transition very seriously, and you're the tail of it all. Yes, you say, thinking longingly of tails and running free without so much as a stitch of clothing or a thought of trains. So you see my problem. What do I do? They click their teeth in sharp, short snaps before musing. Have you tried interacting with the poor thing? A little, you say. I fell on them. And? That's it. Okay, why don't you try going further? Catch them a decade before their cells fall apart. Woo them, stalk them. Do something charming with those pretty eyes you're wearing. Approach them in a moment of desperation. Etch your smile into a deja vu familiarity. Stage serendipitous meetings. Maybe save their life a few times in increasingly fashionable outfits. When you're finally tired of that, then get back to that train station, get those 15 seconds and finish your report so you can join us. They muse to themselves. You could go on for a few decades or so at least and be back before we bring out the canapes. But, You protest and you want to say, I'd rather be swallowed by a monstrous worm than do all that. But then you remember the line between the different types of odd and you finish. That's not professional. They sigh. I suppose. Physical reaction. It's miserable, isn't it? Yeah, you say. Especially the screaming. They blink. What screaming? I fell in love, then my body screamed. Your body isn't supposed to do that. Falling in love doesn't make you scream. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Hadn't that prostitute in Damascus screamed by lamplight while soaking her cot in tears? And hadn't that tech juggernaut also screamed, red-faced, hands hard and eyes harder? Hadn't they both dealt in love, traded it in their business, and absorbed it each night? But your friend shakes their head, taps their manicure, and says, no, odd duck. Why in the name of death earth would you scream when experiencing something so wonderful? Had it been wonderful? You can't tell. Watching the first egg mother nuzzle its pearl of a genetic package into the crook of her limb, that had been wonderful. Dancing with children by firelight while waiting for their meal to cook, slapping their siblings with branches. That had been wonderful. The strained grunts as men carried men off a battlefield, cleaning the dirt off each other's faces and gluing down souls with nothing but prayers and rags, that too had been wonderful in its own way and terrible. All of it had also been so terrible, but wasn't that the point? There was a lot of sweating, you add, and shaking and itching. Oh, it was hard to breathe. Sounds like an allergy. They wrinkle their nose. Did you tamper with your mast cells? You know that's not allowed, right? You didn't tamper with your mast cells because you forgot to make any at all. It's not an allergy. Huh, they cock their head. Maybe it isn't love. Maybe you're just stressed, or you develop some obsessive attachment to this assignment and don't want it to end. Well, that isn't right. You flip the crab shell in your pocket over and over between your fingers. I should get back. You should. It's just 15 seconds, darling. And where are you going to settle after the party? Mars, you say, and you step back onto the train station, sitting on a bench next to a human watching videos at maximum volume. You wait. You quiet your breathing. Your heart beats. Steady. Slow. Synchronized. The human arrives. A wetness in your palms and a dryness in your mouth and your molecules straining to be anywhere else. But you screw yourself where you are. Literally, you twist the fibers of your souls down deep into the concrete and force yourself to keep your eyes trained on them as you ready your pen. The humidity, the temperature, their micro expressions. 15, 14, 13. They see you. You make eye contact across a disembarking crowd. You are half submerged in the slipstreams. You feel a warm breeze on the back of your neck, swirling with long, extinct microbes. But you do not jump. You do not step away. You force yourself into this present, mustering an impartiality worthy of pinchers and an exoskeleton. So what if their eyes are deep and black and bottomless as the beginning of the cosmos? So what if there's something predatory, something hungry in the slow grin creeping across their face as you lock gazes? 12, 11, 10. You are shaking. You are dying. Your heart churns itself into a violence. You are a color no human should be, trembling and palpating, so much that your bench companion side-eyes you in a panic, then begins typing in a number for emergency services. The human, your human, brushes a strand of blue hair out of their face and begins to move toward you. You want nothing more than to run. You are a faithful clerk. You are combusting. You write. It is horrible torture, but it is your job, and you really, really need a vacation. 9, 8, 7. Those eyes that build, average size, shape, health, average upbringing, education, job, a perfect median amalgamation, odd in and of itself. For after all, aren't they all irritatingly distinct in their own way? That's why your job exists, the preservation of all those entropic lives. Is it the averageness you love? The novelty of it? Is it even love? Why did you scream? You feel another noise rising, like sour bile in your throat, and you collapse your larynx to stifle it. They continue to smile at you, a perfect average human expression, not too wide, not too soft, and the rest of your insides fully implode. You stand upright by sheer willpower, every cavity within you hollow and smoking. Why aren't they leaving? Why are they coming toward you? The tide of commuters eddies around them like a current around an approaching alligator. 6, 5, 4. You're almost done. You scratch your last remarks, noting now the angle of their posture, the staccato tapping of their umbrella against their thigh, and their final act, reaching out toward you, toward your briefcase. Then you think, shit. They are close enough for you to feel the heat of their breath, to count the threads in their shirt. I'm the last clerk. You clench your gummy fist. Something is wrong. Something is off. And it's not just you falling apart. I'm the last one. And then, oh no. 3, 2, 1. You leap into a stretch of cosmic void. The nearest star is so far away that it provides neither a Newton of gravity or a photon of light. You are drowned in complete and utter darkness. You dissolve your body and now float peeled and vulnerable as your true self, no Mahansu face to hide behind. You are pure energy, a mind and a soul, now divorced from the molecular obligations of your meat. You are not alone. When the human grabbed your briefcase, you dragged them from the train station. You feel the pressure of their flesh unspooling in the void. Then a voice croons. I can swallow you. I can swallow you now. And it can. A monstrous worm can swallow anything. It eats and is never sated because it craves the repository above all else to digest the record of human existence. It salivates now, pure appetite and desire dripping in waves through you. If you were still in a human body, it would have stiffened, hair shock white, a rigor mortis, clench, cracking every tooth in your jaw, but you've discarded your marrow and meat. You touch your emotions raw with blissful clarity. Fear, not love. For all your half-assery, you had a functioning amygdala. It's the only tissue you can make perfectly without thought. Admin trained you to this extent. Make an amygdala, then build everything else around it. Be alert, be vigilant, because a monstrous worm will stop at nothing to exploit you, to manipulate and wheedle until it finds its feast. You must be deadly afraid. They instructed you when you were a fresh idiot. So afraid that you will recognize one in any form it takes. Be as afraid of it as humans are of the dark, of the unknown. And of course it had taken a median amalgamation. What better way to get lost in a record? It had infested a host so very mundane, so very ordinary, worked, lived, melted into a backdrop of human white noise, because it knew you all would be watching, observing every moment, recording, and that each datum would accumulate, expound on the next, pass from clerk to clerk until the final moment, the completed record sent directly to the repository. It would have latched to your report. It would have clenched a hold of your final submission, and the length of the monstrous worm would have slipped away from the Earth's destruction and siphoned directly into the heart of the repository. It would have swallowed admin first and ravaged every carefully separated encyclopedia. And its other end, its other mouth, you realize, it would have tethered to you as you rejoined your co-workers at their garden party, and it would have made a feast of all of you too, cracked open your human shells and slurped you all, soft and slithering, down its immortal gullet. Except that didn't happen. You had caught that alligator smile, that overeager hand, and brought it here to a useless, lifeless corner of the universe. It is furious. It snaps up your briefcase. The monstrous worm has no eyes and cannot see or be seen, but even in this absolute nothingness, it has a gaze that turns into full force upon you. The wrath, the famine of its attention is enough to wither you where you are. You, intangible, massless, flayed to your core, alive and yearning for rest. You want to be a crab. You will be digested for an eternity. The monstrous worm howls a terrible song, the same song it sang into battle at the beginning of the universe. The monstrous worm opens its mouth. The monstrous worm embraces you with its monstrous tongue. Then it screams. A flash pierces the endless night. Something bright harpoons the worm's interior and pins it, writhing and dying to a locus. A second later, you realize that Admin has suddenly appeared, towing a younger star in their wake. They had condensed the immensity of the star's nuclear gravity into a vector and shot it directly down the monstrous worm in a blazing fury. For a horrible moment, you see it illuminated in all its unfathomable hideousness. Its galactical jaws widened over you, the infinite tortures that would have awaited you down the length of its throat. But then it crackles and implodes. The tongue slackens around you and you hunch over as one of Admin's many hands grabs you, stuffs you into a body, and sends you to a Singaporean food market. The night is damp, the chair is plastic, and your hands are curled around a foam tray topped with mei fun. Compared to the silence of the void a split second ago, the buzz of the market blasts like a shotgun into your skull. A hand of Admin sits across from you, dressed in a track jacket and a fur cap. Their face is stiff, like the uncracked spine of a book, the shadows and crevices folded wrong, the hair a tad too plastic. We haven't taken a physical form in eons, they say redundantly. Does it look all right? You nod, you quiver. The weight of your cheeks and the chattering teeth in your mouth are familiar. Somehow you have Mahan Su's face again. Right. So, the hand works their fingers around a pendentif and sips between words. It took a little longer than we expected, but good work. We have dispatched the worm and erased all evidence of it from the continuity. The human it took as host will need new documentation, of course, but we can have the younger clerks get it done. They need the practice. This liquid is very saccharine. They set the cup down. Do you have any questions before your temporary leave of absence? You've been promoted to head clerk. Catch us another worm, and we might promote you to admin by the end of the millennia. Your voice cracks. You push noodles into your mouth, and the taste shocks you into the reality of your survival. The snow pea falls from your lips, and your meat begins to cry. The hand watches. You wonder if they know what it is you're doing, if they're merely waiting as one would wait for someone to stop coughing. Did you finally warble, use me as bait? No, of course not, they scoff. We noted your penchant for keen observation and past reports and decided that you, of all the clerks, would be most capable of ascertaining the true nature of a worm in its disguise. The transfer of records is a most vulnerable moment for the invasion. We gave you this assignment deliberately, knowing that the worms would take advantage of our new classification system to breach the repository. We were merely uncertain which epoch they would deem most opportune. Without due vigilance, we would have been completely helpless to its appetite. However, true to our expectations, you posed a tempting target. You had the instincts to isolate it to a secondary location, which allowed us to dispatch it once it exposed itself. Admin doesn't know what fishing is. What about the human, you ask? A parasite's mask, a human life stolen to lull invisible observers into a false sense of security. How long did it live in that stolen flesh? 2 hours, 2 days? From birth? You speculate in despair. From birth. You feel a sickness in your upper abdomen, which is your first clue that this is a truly well-made body. The hand taps the table. You can see their features elongating ever so slightly as they shift under the skin. They're trying to smile, you realize. Since we have expunged all traces of the worm from the continuity, it never technically took a host. The end of the planet Earth will proceed, and said former host represents the last documentation needed before we focus our efforts on the next chronology. As stated, the new clerks can take this assignment. It'll be good for them. In another place and another time, you know, an average human with dark eyes dreams of exploding in a void. Congratulations, they say as they stand. We felt this accomplishment was deserving of a corporeal greeting. They stand utterly still for a moment, with their rubbery face contorting pre-sneeze, and you do not blame them because the courtyard is thick with smoke from heated oil, soy sauce, garlic, onion, chili, butter, and curry powder cut through the overpowering smell of cicadas and human sweat. Around you swim hundreds of conversations in a dozen languages, which you card through like tangled wool. Around you are hundreds of humans unaware that every passing second of their lives has been carefully observed, recorded, and categorized. They do not realize that the details of their existence make up the fabric of reality, that it all matters so much. Why didn't you tell me any of this? You ask. When do clerks ever listen to us? Comes the wry reply. Admin slips away. You take 15 minutes to finish the mei fun and the abandoned tea. While you do, you fashion a new carapace. You push aside your tray and put your head on the table. The table becomes sand, and the chatter becomes tide, and the night sky above you collapses into a salt-rich ether. You slip away to a beach on Tea Garden, where you are the only sentient being across several thousand parsecs. You use your pinchers to carve a tunnel into the shore. You burrow. You are small, safe, and suctioned within the rhythm of a thunderous tide. Cool damp seeps from below, the warmth of 3 suns from above. Peace. At last. It takes you a year to get comfortable, another 20 to process your emotions enough fully to enjoy each slow, calm moment. Somewhere far away in time, you know that your fellow clerks drop a disco ball that shatters into a perfect fractal dance floor. They note your absence and comment on your oddities. They may not believe you are capable of love, but you know you are because there is love here in your shell, savoring the sensation of being alive. There is love in your sculpted face, in your collapsing construct of feelings and meat, in your resolve while you stared down the maw of an ancient devourer. It is for love that you will return to your work, while you will, someday, extricate yourself from the sand and step forward into another humid crowd. Comfortable, yes, misshapen and anomalous and yearning. They will pass you by as a forgotten stranger, and you will preserve them in the crook of their mother's elbows, in the heat of their meals, in their blood and loss. All those entropic lives. What are your thoughts on the story? Again, my email is kate@clarkesworldmagazine.com, and that is Clark with an E. I want to thank you for taking the time to send a bunch of emails. They really brighten my day, so thank you very much. We have 4 more stories left for you for the month of October. I do hope you'll come back and listen should you so choose. And until then, my dear listener, I bid you a very fond and hopefully very temporary farewell.